Good evening and thank you for staying with us right here on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. This is a World News at 6. My name is Esther Mwachuku. First off, the top stories. Kidnappers kill two policemen, abduct Chinese Nigerian inquirer. Traders lament low patronage as RAM price soars by 55.5%. President Bola Tinubu commissions Lekki Deep Seaport Concrete Road others. Wike speaks on Cabal controlling Tinubu's government. Army confirms killing of 3 Boko Haram ISWAP leaders in gun battle. In a very recent development, however, coalition talks ADC launches 2027 nationwide consultation to strengthen coalition. And Peter Obi, other passengers escape plane crash in Lagos. And stories outside the shores of Nigeria, actually outside the country at this particular moment. Trump speaks on emerging consultation to end the war between Ukraine and Russia. Details now. The Kwara State Police Command has confirmed the killing of 2 police officers and the abduction of a Chinese national and a Nigerian in Orike-Okigbo community, Ifalodun local government area of the state. The incident occurred at a mining site in the community around 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday when the gunmen launched an attack on the facility, killing 2 officers, an assistant superintendent of police and an inspector, both attached to the fortified police mobile force Abuja. In a statement today, the State Police Public Relations Officer, SP Adetoun Ejiri-Adeyemi, who signed on behalf of the Commissioner of Police, CP Adekimi-Ojo, confirmed the incident. Well, the CP condemned the attack and assured the police that the command had launched a full-scale investigation and rescue operation. He also disclosed to the public that while tactical and intelligence-driven efforts are currently underway to ensure the swift rescue of the abducted victims and the apprehension of those responsible for the cowardly attack, the police thereby urged residents to remain calm and continue to support security agencies with timely and credible information. Meanwhile, as Nigerians gear up for the Eid al-Kabir celebration, ram traders in Ibafo, Kara, and Agege markets of Ogun and Lagos states lamented low patronage, blaming it on the rising cost and economic downturn. The traders who spoke separately with correspondents said there was a decline in patronage compared to what was applicable last year because of the hike in the price of rams in the market. They added that the cost of sourcing the rams from the northern parts of the country had skyrocketed and contributed to the high cost they were selling. A trader lamented that the patronage compared to last year was not encouraging, adding that the cost of sourcing the rams from the north affected the price of the items. Also, explaining further at the popular abattoir market in the Agege area of Lagos State, correspondents observed that the market was scanty while only a few traders and customers were engaging in trade. Also in Oriomi, who expressed worry about the low patronage caused by the high prices of ram, stated that usually the abattoir is supposed to be crowded by now, which is obviously from Tuesday. Salah is on Friday, but the people are not coming to buy the rams because of the high cost of the price. Other sellers lamented about the costly activity, which has reduced patronage from customers. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu today commissioned the Lekki Deep Seaport Tax Credit Concrete Road Project, as well as flagged off Section 2 of the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway and the 7th Axial Road. In a statement issued via his official X handle shortly before the commissioning of the projects, the leader said transportation infrastructure is central to the success of his administration's agenda. President Tinubu emphasized that the road projects are investments by his government in mobility, job creation, and Nigeria's long-term economic competitiveness. He also went ahead to disclose the importance of this road projects. He says these roads are more than concrete, steel and asphalt. They are investments by your government in mobility, jobs, and Nigeria's long-term economic competitiveness. He also disclosed that they include reinforced concrete access road to the Lekki Deep Seaport, the Kano-Kongolam Road, Section 2, Kano-Kanwar-Danja-Hadejia, the Yakasai-Zali Road, and several other across northern Nigeria. Also, he says he will flag off new road projects that are critical to fast-tracking broader infrastructure goals. In another development, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, has declared that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is firmly in control of his administration, dismissing rumors about or speculations about a cabal pulling strings behind the scenes. Wike, who is a former governor of Rivers State, made the assertion today while delivering the 2025 OAU Distinguished Personality Lecture at Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, Osun State. He praised President Tinubu's decisiveness and leadership, stating that the president is demonstrating firm control of governance and not allowing shadow influences. The FCT minister took a swipe at previous administration, saying they lacked the political will to take bold economic decisions. According to him, former President Olusegun Obasanjo and Goodluck Jonathan could not muster the courage to end fuel subsidy or unify the country's exchange rates. Despite acknowledging that Nigeria has underachieved since independence, we can maintain that the nation still holds the potential for greatness if the right leadership and systems are put in place. The Nigerian army has confirmed the death of 3 leaders of the Boko Haram ISWAP terrorist group. The army, in a statement today, said the terrorist leaders were killed during a fierce gun battle with troops at Malam Fatori and Buratai. The statement identified the eliminated terrorist leaders as Amir Abu Ali, Amir Ubunu, and Amir Abu Wadume. Earlier on, there were reports that the troops of the Nigerian army have successfully eliminated several Boko Haram and ISWAP terrorists in Borno states. Troops of Operation Hardin Kai neutralized the terrorists in Malam Fatori, as well as while they set up an ambush targeting security personnel in the Abraka community of Delta State following a joint operation by police, vigilantes and hunters that resulted in the death of 4 abductors in the university town. Reports also indicate that some security officials may have been killed or injured during the ambush. At the particular moment, however, the individuals who got injured have been taken to the hospital for medical attention. On Wednesday, some hijackers allegedly attacked and killed 2 residents who were in the bush for a land transaction. Upon receiving the information, the police quickly mobilized to the location alongside local hunters and vigilantes. The resident, Marcus Duffy, who participated in a protest against kidnapping in Abraka that was disrupted by security forces, was reportedly shot dead by the alleged kidnappers. Meanwhile, the African Democratic Congress has kick-started a nationwide grassroots consultation aimed at strengthening its coalition framework and expanding its political reach in preparation for the 2027 general elections. The party's national chairman, Chief Ralph Okenwusu, disclosed this at a press briefing in Abuja on Wednesday, stating that the initiative is not just a political event, but a deliberate grassroots movement to solidify its presence and deepen coalition integration. According to Nwusu, the consultations will run from Monday to Saturday in the first week of June 2025, spanning all 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. The consultations will convene in state capitals and involve a broad coalition of stakeholders, including political parties, civil society groups, labor unions, patriotic Nigerians interested in ADC's rescue agenda. Ralph Nwusu emphasized that the consultation reflects ADC's commitment to a bottom-up political model and is no longer a project centered in Abuja. Nwusu reiterated the party's symbolic handshake tradition, which he described as a representation of warmth, unity and inclusivity, urging members to embody ADC's values of openness, compassion and solidarity. During an emergency session at the ADC Global Campus National Headquarters in Abuja, where the consultations were finalized, also underscored the urgency of Nigeria's national crisis. The party also unveiled plans to introduce a grassroots-driven resource mobilization model as part of its broader strategy to harmonize leadership, messaging and development priorities across all political levels. While reports have emerged that the 2023 presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, escaped a plane crash together with over 100 passengers at the local wing of the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos. Well, the near-crash incident, which occurred on Tuesday, June 3rd, involved an Air Peace plane with flight number P47123, which took off from Abuja. According to reports, the Air Peace plane was to land at about 1:55 p.m. but landed at 2:25 p.m. with approximately 30 minutes behind schedule. Sources privy to the incident disclosed that for about 30 minutes, the pilot lost control, leaving the aircraft to hover, instilling fear and trembling on all passengers. A passenger who pleaded anonymity was quoted as saying that it was a nasty experience. The plane made many attempts to land but had to retreat. The passengers were jolted. People were praying and casting out the level as the plane's destiny was uncertain. At a point, it was as if the plane would crash on many houses. The passenger self-experience underlines the fragile nature of Nigeria and how the natural disaster could plunge the country into a major civil strife or even war. She said that Nigerian leaders need to fix the country and avoid potential causes of disasters like this, which has serious implications for national security. She also said that she almost gave up as the plane hovered and aimlessly between ascending or descending into chaos. She disclosed, and I quote, "Peter Obi was in the plane. Many lost hope. We thought the plane would crash. He was calm and resolute. He was telling people around him to be calm, that all will be well. We thank God we survived. No one would have believed it was an accident if the plane had crashed with Peter Obi inside." Another passenger also quoted. He said while other passengers were in great confusion, Obi was comforting them that they should trust in God. A businessman in the flight, Dr. Benson Onwaji, was said to have summoned courage by standing up to pray for the passengers. As it stands, Obi, who recently donated 20 million naira to flood victims in Niger State, had been visiting some communities in northern Nigeria, after which he returned to Abuja for a scheduled political meeting. He was said to have left Lagos for Abuja that afternoon for another meeting. You're currently listening to the World News at 6 right here on Voice of the People, 92.3 FM. We'll take a very short break. When we return, we'll head into a news analysis segment where I'm being joined right here in the studio with Mr. Dele Fanimo, who is a political, national and social affairs commentator. Do kindly stay with us.
It's too loud.
All right, Mr. Dele Fanimo, good evening and thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Good evening, Esther.
Happy
Nice
Eid
to
al-Kabir.
be here again. Oh, well.
We are not amongst those going to go and buy ram.
Well,
But we're expecting
I
to
have
eat ram.
friends that will kill ram.
Yes, obviously. The road is actually busy with a lot of persons trying to get access to Kara
No,
Bridge.
it will ease up tomorrow.
By tomorrow, right? Because there's a lot of traffic along most axes in Lagos. Mr. Dele Fanimo, let's start off with this incident that may have turned up to be something else. Peter Obi was on a flight which obviously was hovering in the air for about 30 minutes, where there was a tendency that it could have landed, in such a way that maybe many persons would have lost their lives. And there was something important that was said, that if this had happened, they would have felt like it was a targeted attempt at Peter Obi's life. They may have made it to seem like it was a political thing. Some persons may have targeted the airplane where he was part of, and that in the midst of the entire chaos, he was calm and resolute. So how do you see this kind of scenario with the sensitivity, the sensitivity of our political climate? How would you adjudge the scenario?
Well, let me say now that sometimes all those cleavages that tend to divide us would also definitely change the narrative.
Okay.
If, God forbid, if that incident had turned out Ori. And I also want Nigerians to take a cue from this. They would have said, the pilot deliberately or the aeronautic engineer deliberately removed something from the cabin or anywhere in the aircraft to make sure that they can even say it was bombed mid-air. And that is why we need to de-emphasize these religious, ethnic cleavages that is tearing this country apart.
Seriously.
Because, and I salute the courage of Mr. Peter Obi.
Okay.
Because when you are airborne,
True.
your life in somebody else's hands, you can't control it. You are just like a sitting duck. And whatever happens, God forbid, you don't have a choice, And because in the belly of that aircraft, you have close to between 30 and 40,000 liters of Jet A1. That on landing, it could crash and it will explode. That's why most of the time, when there's a plane crash, people hardly survive.
Okay.
But we thank God for showing mercy.
Exactly, because according to what this passenger narrated, that for almost 30 minutes they were hovering, the pilot seemed not to have control of the plane, and that in the midst of all, while one passenger was praying, Peter Obi got up to console and comfort the passengers. He was obviously apprehensive as well, but he was calm in the process. They were also not part of the plane. Maybe if it was a chartered plane, or it was a private plane and that kind of thing happened, there is no way you would explain to anyone that it was basically an accident without it seeming like it was targeted or it was an assassination. If you recall, former Vice President Professor Yemi Oshibajo, I think on 2 or 3 different occasions, he almost had such an incident. Certain persons felt that it was a political target against his life. If you remember when he was stripped of some of his assistants then because of when Muhammad Buhari traveled and he'd acted as a president should act. So all these connotations were part of it. Would you consider a couple of measures as that possibly while politics is rife, that certain things shouldn't drive the nation towards that kind of conclusion? Because there is no how you would have discouraged anyone from thinking otherwise, that this was basically an accident if God, like you said, God, if God forbid that kind of incident had taken place.
You see, I just said it earlier that it is incumbent on us now as Nigerians to begin to dismantle all these conspiracy theories.
Is it possible to do that with the political tension? This is the political season. Everything is attached to personality. Persons have forgotten that politics is different from personal life. So everything is attached to politics. And it has gotten so bad that it feels like the government of the day is enabling it by no one calling anybody to order.
You see, it's not government of the day that would call anybody to order.
You think so?
Yes.
Okay.
Because government is even involved. Some people are attacking the government because the president is not from their own extraction.
You think so?
Yes. Buhari, when he was there, no northerner ever condemned all the activities in that government. It is even here in the southwest that we tend to criticize when it is necessary to criticize. Regardless of who is there. You can see if a whole Afenifere will extray the government, I doubt if Arewa Consultative Forum or Aneze Idigbo will do that to their kinsmen. But here we are in the southwest. If you are not good, you are not good. If you are good, you are good. And that should be the mantra. For me, I don't have any reason to support bad government, regardless of where you come from. I've said several times certain policies, certain things that this government has done in the last 2 years that I feel uncomfortable with. But then, if we must criticize, it should be constructive criticism.
And not personal.
Not destructive criticism laced with malice over ethnic divide. An example is Rwanda. The Tutsi and Hutu, they were living together until a radio station started spewing hate speech. And as they say, the rest is history. Over 800,000 people were killed within a space of about 3 months.
Right, more than that, actually.
No, at least let's be conservative about it, And today, it is a criminal offense in Rwanda to identify somebody as Hutu or Tutsi.
Okay, so would you advise?
So we shouldn't allow it to get to that point. I have friends that are Hausa. I have friends that are Igbo. As a matter of fact, I have more friends that are Igbo than even Yoruba. That is not to say that I don't have Yoruba friends. I have Hausa friends. I was with an Igbo friend, a general in the army, on Saturday. We were together for about 7 hours. And it didn't cross our mind to feel, this is Yoruba.
That's what I'm asking. Is it possible that persons should be able to detract themselves you can have different political ideologies, but it doesn't
Yes.
necessarily need to infuse or penetrate into personal lives. Another question that I would like you to respond to is, okay, fine, Peter Obi likes to go with economy or something like that for safety reasons or to prevent things like what just happened. Would you advise that maybe he should start using a private jet or a private helicopter or something rather than using, just general airlines like this to avoid such in scenarios? Like we said, we want to prevent a situation where people will insinuate or make certain attributions whereby maybe the government of the day may not even be aware of. It would just have been an unfortunate accident. And thank God it did not happen, because at this point in time, there is no way you want to assuage people to say that it was an innocent situation. So, or that the pilot wasn't bribed, or something wasn't deliberately done, knowing that based on the manifesto he was on that plane. So the question is it possible that he should start now, considering how things are in the polity, possibly use a private jet or a helicopter if he wants to make intra travels within the country?
Now let me tell you.
Okay.
Is there a different airspace for private jets?
No, it's the same airspace.
The same airspace.
Yes.
Is there anything that is special about private jet that is not in the commercial
No.
airplane?
No.
And in fact, it is even safer
Okay.
for him to be among over 100 passengers than to be alone in a private aircraft. For me, is the same mechanism, is the same airspace, is the same pilot, because all of them have licenses to fly. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had access to aircraft.
True.
So for me, it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
It doesn't really matter.
All right.
If is except if he feels that his life is at risk,
Okay.
and that maybe at landing or wherever that somebody might just compromise his security.
Yeah.
All he needs to do is just to beef up his security. But when it comes to aircraft, my sister, there is nothing anybody can do if it's going to happen. We have seen Patrick Aziza was killed in an helicopter.
Even the former army
That's
chief
him
of
now.
army
That's
staff
chief of army
too.
staff. You know, so
Although that's why I said in that particular whatever, there were connotations attached to it.
that's what I'm saying.
You know, they felt that the man
What
really was going to do
accident-
the needful, and then it was too mysterious to say that it
Accident-
wasn't targeted or he wasn't targeted.
Accidents are bound to happen when they will happen.
That's the thing. That's what I'm trying to say.
And
That
so-
at this point in time, nobody would have attributed it to have been an innocent, unfortunate situation. That's the thing. Compared to like what
You see,
happened with the former chief of
in all
army
of
staff.
in all of this,
Okay.
let's just be grateful to God for
And nothing
sparing
happened. Okay.
his life and that of the other passengers.
Exactly.
Because his life is not more important than
Than
the
the
others.
others. Very true.
Yeah,
Very
and
true.
if you go through the manifest, there could be some other important people that were not mentioned just because Peter Obi is up there
Okay.
in the public space. That's why it can be easily identified.
Okay. Well, a couple of persons have actually resonated, kind of spoken, possibly tried to reach out to him via social media to curtail his traveling, considering the political situation in the country. But like you said, you can't stop him from moving because of such fears. Now, let's look at the situation with security in the country. I would have played the insert where the chief of army staff said he doesn't understand why Nigerians are happy when they hear unfortunate or terrible news about their security. I don't know if you've seen this video very recently. I don't know if it's an old video, but we saw where Boko Haram or ISWAP members apprehended some Nigerian soldiers, tied their hands at the back, put them on a bike. We don't know where they're taking them to. And these are very young. This is a video I saw recently, different from the previous ones we have seen. So the chief of army staff is here to speak on it. So we saw this video with this men and with our Nigerian young soldiers, very young, all of them. They haven't hurt them, but it was obvious that you know how these individuals behave, and it's one too many, despite the fact that they are recording victory in eliminating these guys. But a lot of our young soldiers are being taken away. What is the problem? How is it that these individuals are able to surround the Nigerian army, take them captive, take them by surprise? What is the modus operandi when it comes to intelligence gathering? And what's the support like whenever this kind of thing happens in terms of immediate response, to rescue them?
Let me tell you, Esther, conventional wars are easier to fight than when you have to contend with ragtag army. They know you. You have a permanent base. They identify you with your uniforms. But these people, most times, if you meet them on the way they are dressed, you may not even know they are terrorists. And the difference between the terrorists and the Nigerian army is that an average soldier in the Nigerian army wants to fight and come back home.
Okay.
But the terrorists had been so indoctrinated to the point that perishing at the war front makes him happy. Some of my friends that are military officers and men had told me at one point or the other, since the Boko Haram thing happened, that when you catch about 10, 15 of them, they will be pleading with you to shoot them because they want to quickly go to heaven. And they will even prescribe that they want just a shot on their head.
Yeah.
So that is to tell you that somebody who is not afraid of death, no matter how strong you are, you better beware when you want to contend with that person. And so, most of the time, it's a difficult war to fight, to prosecute.
But the chief of army staff said, based on whatever intelligence they had gotten, that the reason why Boko Haram thrived was because we protected them. He said, for example, where they buy petrol, where they buy food items, people provide information to them. But if you recall, the recent terrorist group Mahmouda came out to actually threaten the residents of the community that if they provide information to the military, they would decimate them. Do you think that's why the fear is in them not to report the activities of these individuals, where they think their villages will be eviscerated if they get to know they're providing intel to the Nigerian military? And then what is the method through which these community members are kept safe if they provide such information as to where these men are, where they feed, who they are, and how they can easily identify them? What measure had been applied to protect persons who provide or who whistleblow or provide information or provide intel to them?
You see, the point is, how many soldiers do we have in this country that every community would have to be protected 24 hours a day? Now, these people, it's not easy for you to be able to cover the whole country with the number of soldiers we have on ground.
Okay.
And so, what they do is to intensify intel and make sure that they are proactive. And then logistics would have to also be considered. There are some places that are very difficult, where you have difficult terrain. It's always very difficult to penetrate those terrains. The hills, the deep forest, the marshy land, and all that. You have to use different tactics for different, and more so, some of these soldiers that are deployed rely on compass, whereas these terrorists have inhabited those places. Okay. So they know their way through. It's a very difficult thing for the Nigerian army. And that's why I must commend them for the efforts they have been making to ensure that this thing is reduced to the barest minimum. It's not easy to fight that kind of war.
All right, let's look at the price of food items across the country. There are complaints, low patronage from passengers. People are not able to buy. It's not just even the RAM. In fact, because of the recent Mokwa Bridge collapse, there are fears that tomato, pepper, and all that, perishable goods items that comes from that region may actually soar because of the fact that there will be no vehicular movement in this time space. I remember the president's wife had encouraged us to start farming at our backyards that would encourage us having alternative means to feed. But if you're living in a state like Lagos that, everywhere is compact, supposedly congested, it's only when you're staying in your own private property that you can do personal farming. So what happens in this period? What would you think this is meant to encourage in terms of possibly home growing our food items, so that one is not stranded when such incidents happen?
You see, when I was growing up, this part of the country had its own species of tomato.
All right.
And we were planting and we were also harvesting, either for sale or personal use. Suddenly, it just vanished. And we went our way expecting some other people to bring to us. Now, cow. There were farm settlements owned by government in this country in the time past, that they breed cow, a species of cow that is not as tall as the ones that are brought from the north, but very fat and robust. And those cows, in fact, they roam around our communities at that time. Where are they today? They all went into extinction because there was no concerted effort and no conscious effort to make sure that those things are sustained. Now, the only governor, there are two governors that are really working hard to make sure that they revamp those settlements. Oyo State Governor and Ekiti State Governor. Now, there used to be a dairy farm in Ekiti. They call it Ekiti Dairy Farm. It's at those local government in Ekiti State. They have revived that now in partnership with some other companies from abroad. Now they produce milk, they produce cheese, and they also produce meat in that settlement. Now there's another one in Oyo State, Fashola Farms. All right. Not too far away from Oyo town.
Yeah.
Now they imported 10 hybrid cow. 1,000 hybrid cows. Those cows are not to be sold.
Okay.
They were milking those cows and they're still milking them, and they're also producing cheese from that farm. And I tell you, in 3 years, we could have another maybe 200 or 300 cows that will be produced in that farm. So over the next 10 years, you could have up to 10,000 cows.
But don't you think insecurity is the main bane of...
Nobody has reported that there was any security compromise in that farm. Let all the other governors also replicate some of this.
Okay.
What stops state governments into going into massive farming and also empowering genuine farmers, not portfolio farmers?
Okay.
In no time, every state in this country will have arable land enough to produce some of those things we need to survive. Why must we wait for others to hold us to ransom? There was a time they said they were not going to bring their produce to the south. In fact, they were stopping them at Mokwa, because that's where the north, part of the north, is connected to the south, particularly the northwest.
Yes.
I've traveled through that route to as far as Kebi, so I know how it works. And that bridge, it's a long stretch of bridge.
Yes, it's a long stretch of bridge.
Now, must we wait until they bring tomato, onion? Onion can be grown in the south. Tomato can be grown in the south. Yam can be grown in the south. In fact, it is even easier now. All you need to do is just get these bago sacks and then put manure and sand, and you plant your yam, and in 3-4 months you harvest your yam.
All right, Mr. Dilifanimo, let's move on to Nyesom Wike having to clarify that there is no cabal within the cabinet of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, meaning that whatever decision, whatever it is we hear, whatever it is it's said, it's coming from him. He has the mental acuity to make his decisions. Nobody's pulling the strings. There are no oligarchs behind telling him, if you don't do what I want you to do, these are going to be the consequences. We're going to ensure that your administration does not go well. So if that is the case, Nigerians are now asking questions why the president has not been able to be very decisive in handling insecurity. Some other persons are permutating that maybe there was some sort of agreement. I don't understand what that kind of agreement would allow someone who is going to lead this beautiful, peculiar country to allow certain persons to be killed. For example, like the incessant killings in Benue State, the one in Plateau State, and the fact that it took a while for the president to respond to it, or to even say anything like he did when the whole River State situation happened. So in that particular regard, we can come in to clarify this. Why does it seem like the president takes his time to respond to these issues compared to how he quickly reacted or responded to that of Rivers?
You see, Cabal simply means a group of people, not very large, coming together to either conspire or to wield power behind the scene. They are not usually known.
Yes, obviously.
They control events and make decisions behind the scene.
Yeah.
Now, the Tinubu that I know, how do you get Cabal even in your small enclave? It is because you are not in absolute control. So you need some people to tell you that, look, you cannot go this way, you have to go this way. And this is as a result of the influence they wielded putting you in power.
In power, exactly.
So they will always blackmail you into making sure that you do their bidding.
Well, the reason why this is coming up, Mr. Dele, is the fact that I don't know if you recall very recently when some senators met in Niger State. I don't know if you remember former Senator Elisha Abu coming out to call out the president, and he said that the North, not even the Southwest, which is the president's home base, the North contributed majorly in securing the win for him. They said about 65% of the vote came from the North, and that he is not doing the needful when it comes to the interest of the North, and all of those sentiments that he was reeling out at the time. So when you hear such comments, it now feels like, okay, maybe there was some conversation that was had, vote for me and this is what I would do for you, and then now he's in power, he's not responding or assenting to some promises that were made. Now, where it has been gotten wrong is this was the same permutation that was rife during the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari, where he was sometimes oblivious of what was going on around him. He will always say he doesn't know, he's not aware all the time. So certain persons were the ones administering the country, like his chief of staff before COVID, happened to him, Abakari, before COVID happened to him. So it is not abnormal to have this kind of permutation, resuscitating itself now. But if the president is firmly in control of his administration, as Wike is saying, and that there is no cabal pulling the strings, how come an APC chieftain is saying that those responsible for the insecurity are the ones who want to control the government because they feel the government is not doing their bidding?
Now, let me tell you, even as we speak, if you become the managing director of this organization today, apart from related to all the staff members, you have some people that you have identified that come rain or shine, they are there for you, and they will continually be there for you. Those ones may not be more than 5. I've applied it when I was an MD of a newspaper, and I've done that when I was executive director of a radio station and all that. So these are people that that can watch your back.
Yeah.
The fact that you are drawing them close to you does not mean they are cabal. But to the outside world, anybody that comes to your office without seeing your secretary, anybody that he sees you and he says, let's meet somewhere, becomes a cabal. But in the true sense of it, you are in charge, you are in control. And if any one of them overstep, it's a band. You know how to deal with them. And so I see a precedent in that light, except it begins to concede certain powers to those so-called cabal. That's when they can now begin to have influence on him to the extent that they will say, this is what we want. You recall that Abba Kyari and the first lady in Buharis administration, Aisha, almost had brushes. At the point, security men were at at crossroads who to support inside
we,
Aso Rock.
yes,
they
we
were
heard
shooting.
the story. Yes, they were shooting.
You understand?
Yes.
That is to show you the extent when you allow people to get undue influence and
Over
power
you.
around you. But the Tinubu that I know, I don't think it will happen.
All right.
It never happened in Obasanjo's era.
Obviously.
But at some point, it almost happened, but it was not as obvious in Jonathan's era.
Are you sure?
It wasn't that
obvious. It wasn't obvious in Jonathan's era.
It wasn't.
Are you very certain?
Yes, I was
Mr.
certain.
Delifanimo. Okay,
I know what I'm talking about.
That's your perception.
I'm not
A couple of
saying
people feel otherwise.
I'm not saying that there was no semblance of Cabal in Jonathan's era, but it became so obvious during Buhari's era, because at some point somebody was even told some of us that when Abba Kyari gets to Buhari's office, that he just clutches the file under his armpit and tell him what is contained in the file in full day. And once the man nods his head,
and that's
the approval.
But it seemed so. Because
but you think Tinubu will do that? No way. It won't happen.
I think the reason was because of the fact that he's been quiet with the incessant killings across the country by certain persons. The Nigerian chief of army staff has said that, these persons are not from the northern extraction, as it's been speculated. They are not from Nigeria. They are from the Sahelian region. Because of what's going on with Burkina Faso, Mali, and all of that, they are being forced to come in. Then he's advocating for our borders to be properly fenced. But the unfortunate thing here, Mr. Delifanimo, is that our young soldiers are being mutilated by these individuals. It's discouraging to see them get overpowered. It's discouraging to see that the weapons these terrorists are using are of higher power than what the Nigerian military is using. And so there needs to be more decisive measures needs to be applied beyond whatever it is tactic they are applying now. So in that particular regard, with what is currently going on as to insecurity in the country, would you say that the measures on ground are deliberately being slow, or more money is needed? Do you think that there is a form of international interference with what is going on? Because you cannot tell me that persons are not supplying these terrorists those kind of firepower weapons. That seems to be more than what the Nigerian army has. Or could it just be that monies are given to the leaders in the army and they're not utilizing the funds for buying equipment to fortify the men on the field?
See, the spate of kidnapping and the gains of kidnapping. As at October last year, there was this report that over 2.8 trillion naira was collected as ransom in 1 year, in less than 1 year.
It was actually the NBS that brought the report before they said that their website was hacked.
Now, let's assume, without conceding, that kind of money, even 1 trillion, we know people that had paid 250 million, we know those that have paid $1 million just to rescue their kids and kin.
Yeah.
Now, $1 million translates to 1.6 billion. And how many of that do you need to arrive at this figure we're talking about? Now, with that, what type of weapon do they need that they cannot acquire? We have read and we have seen that when these terrorists are caught, you hardly find a single note in their pocket. When these kidnappers are caught, you hardly see money with them. Somebody somewhere, who is the kingpin, collects this money. And they are not known to live amongst us in the cities where they can flaunt wealth. What they do is to plow it back to acquiring sophisticated weapons. So the only thing that Nigerian army can do is to target the source of supply.
Okay.
Once the source of supply is cut off, it's difficult for them to flourish.
All right, Mr. Delifanimo, thank you so much for taking your time to give us your assessment on some of the stories read out on the World News at 6. I sincerely do appreciate your input. By tomorrow, I'm sure the office of Escantable will be here working. It's going to be Eid al-Kabir. We intend to eat salaram.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not a Muslim, so I cannot guarantee you ram.
But you have friends that have ram, so you would extend the love. You will pack it in your nylon bag and bring it here. Thank you very much, Mr. Delifanima. All right, and just before we go, let's look at stories outside the shores of Nigeria. U.S. President Donald Trump says he was very surprised and disappointed with former ally Elon Musk's criticisms of his centerpiece budget bill. It was the president's most direct criticism yet of Musk's lobbying efforts against the proposals to cut taxes and slash government spending, a plan that has drawn criticism from Musk and some Republicans. In response, Musk doubled down on X and accused the president of such ingratitude, adding, "Without me, Trump would have lost the election." Musk left his post at the Department of Government Efficiency last week after 129 days in the job, and Trump presented him with a golden key during a congratulatory news conference on the 30th of May. But in the days since, he has repeatedly criticized Trump's budget bill currently working its way through Congress, calling it a disgusting abomination and posting shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong. The bill passed the House with the backing of most Republicans, with a handful of representatives from Trump's party and all Democrats opposed. Speaking to reporters during a news conference with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz on Thursday, Trump said, "We are doing things in that bill that are unbelievable." However, he is disappointed because Elon knew the inner workings of this bill better than almost anybody sitting here. All of a sudden, he had a problem. He hasn't said bad about me personally, but I'm sure that will be next. Put in charge of radically slashing government spending, Musk initiated mass sackings and wholesale elimination of departments such as the U.S. Agency for International Development. Dodge, which is the Department of Government Expenditure, claims to have saved $180 billion, although that number has been disputed and is well short of Musk's initial aim to cut spending by up to $2 trillion. And that's a wrap on the world news at 6. My name is Esther Machuku. Good evening. Thank you for listening. To join us for the evening rush at 7 o'clock. Bye for now.